And then we can start. Yeah.
Okay.
Nimilita, whenever there is a new joinee or attendee.
Go ahead, Manish.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Manish Sharma from Team ET Edge, welcoming you to an extended edition of the Economic Times DataCon Virtual Summit, India's largest virtual data and AI summit. Today's roundtable discussion on data challenges in the BFSI sector powered by Hitachi Vantara. In today's session, we are going to discuss some of the data challenges in the BFSI sector. Unlocking the data power for better business outcomes is at the core, but how is the business sector addressing some of the challenges? Our today's discussion would revolve around that. Let me here invite Hemant Tiwari, Managing Director, Hitachi Vantara, India and SAT, to set the context for today's discussion. Thank you, and over to you, Hemant.
Thank you very much, Mihir, and very good afternoon to all of you. So, as I am introduced, Hemant Tiwari, and I am Managing Director for Hitachi Vantara in India. You know, as we know, in today's world, really, you know, a whole host of things are happening at a very, very rapid pace, and we've seen that in COVID era as well. We were already digitally transforming all our organizations for a very long time, and that basically posed a challenge to all of us in the IT organizations. As we were operating in the past was no relevant to how we are going to be operating in the future. And you know, therefore digitally transforming the organization, enabling the businesses to basically get what they want, you know, by way of their agendas, became the you know, biggest priority for all of us. The amount of data that is coming in from all sides today, IT is being continually tasked to actually accelerate the time to market for new projects and programs, and to minimize the risk to the business. So really speaking, if you see here, companies are trying to enhance, working to enhance the customer experiences, reduce their costs and improve operational efficiencies and deliver the service levels that are demanded in today's competitive environment and landscape. Organizations like ours are finding ways to look the logistics of data to improve, what we call as operational, efficiencies within our organizations. Trying to figure out how do we leverage that data and blend the data to enhance the customer experiences, which is extremely critical for most of our business, owners in our organizations, and be ready to actually accommodate a whole host of new business demands. And eventually getting insights to the data for innovations and come with new business ideas is something that is very critical and is expected from all of us, the IT owners in the organizations. And how do we take these ideas to the market is really very critical. So refreshing the existing systems to get new functionality in part of data center modernization is one of the biggest priorities. However, it only gives us the modern systems, not a modern next generation, overall architecture to manage data, which is the very core of, all that we do in our organizations. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so I don't know if the slides are being shared, but yeah, if you can share the slide, just move to the second slide, please. Mihir, are you controlling the slide flow?
Viraj, can you just put on that slide?
Give us a minute, sir. We are putting it.
Yes, honestly.
Anyhow, so what I was saying is that all of us are challenged, regardless of where we are, to basically help our organizations to go through a very rapid digital, transforming journey. Now, COVID has accelerated digital transformation, but that is only as far as our employees are consuming a whole host of business processes in our organizations. That really doesn't really mean that they are leveraging the amount of data that is there in our organizations to actually enhance customer experiences in the way that we need to to be able to actually help accelerate operational efficiencies within our organizations. Of course, come out with new business models and new business insights basically, and those are the basic things that we are trying to help in our organization. Let's go to the next slide, please. So this really brings us down to, do we really understand where is the data that is there in our organization, that and where does it reside? Do we have the right data? Do we have it at the right place in the right time for our business users to actually use it? So the buzz around data grows louder every day, amplified by the unconstant volumes of data now pouring into our organizations from a host of sources: IoT, sensors, machine data, multimedia data, social media feeds that we all get in our organizations, of course, enterprise systems data, which has always existed for a very long time. As a result, there is a great deal of executive level focus within our organizations on better business outcomes that are made possible by intelligently capturing that data that is there in our organization, orchestrating and analyzing that data. So more personalized customer experiences, as I talked in the previous slide, greater process efficiencies and enhanced productivity in the and the new digital revenue streams that we can help our business users to really unleash in the marketplace, and the transformational possibilities of automation and artificial intelligence can all be unleashed by a fresh approach to how we manage data management approach actually in our organizations. And that fresh approach is basically, the way Hitachi terms is actually, it's called data operations, and we call it data ops within our overall context. Now, do we really know where all of our data is? How do we access it, and who can see it and who cannot see it? So, if we are not sure, then we are not alone in this journey, actually speaking. According to IDC, the reality is that only 2.5% of all data that is actually in our enterprise actually analyzed. That means the vast majority of our data that resides in our organization, that valuable data is absolutely completely underutilized or not utilized at all. Data is also unique. Unlike most corporate assets, data is infinitely diverse and is able to simultaneously be used for many strategic purposes. Its value also appreciates over time as it is enriched and activated, as we go about. So within the context of this, the way Hitachi basically sees its role in the entire overall data lifecycle journey for our customers, and that's where we are focused at the very core of how data is managed and how data management practices and architecture is unleashed in the organizations. So really speaking, legacy methods are often complex, expensive, and brittle. They rely on a small number of experts manually holding together a disparate set of data. Data management tools, and to locate and blend that data in an attempt to meet business demands is very complex. Now, within here, it becomes very difficult as to how do we help our businesses to basically run those data operations and building data pipelines and data discovery and integration and transformation and cleansing of that data, visualization of the data and data lakes. And onboarding and machine learning process. At the same time, governance is a big challenge. E-discovery, retention management, and archiving and data auditing becomes a big issue as well. Operational agility. So that's another area that we can help our business owners with by basically operational data that use cases where we can help reduce costs and improve overall price performance. The way Hitachi looks at this entire journey, and it's at the very core of our overall strategy as well, is how do we actually help our customers to store the data and securely protect the data. So put in place a very agile data infrastructure architecture within the organization that optimizes the storage and management and protection of all information assets, as well as optimizing service levels to enable innovation across the enterprise. Primarily, what is involved in here is how do we start to modernize the IT infrastructure, modernizing data protection solution, strategies, and keeping data continuously available in a very compliant manner, and using intelligent software for predictive analysis and so on and so forth. At the same time, as I said earlier, data is coming from social media feeds, coming from IoT and machine devices, IoT sensors. It's coming from business systems as well as a host of other sources. The problem is that how do you bring all of that data and how do you unleash the value from that data? And that is where I think the biggest challenge lies. How the data is discovered within an organization, how do we help integrate and orchestrate that data to boost productivity and really create new revenue opportunities. So, in enriching, basically, how do you enrich the data that is coming, which is very diverse? It is machine data, it is basically structured data, it is file data, it is object data, and a whole host of other things. Unlocking business value from this data, and how do we optimize data business strategies and increase competitiveness for our businesses and competitive advantage. This becomes a valuable as data asset only when we are able to actually enrich that particular data, and when we can understand what the data is, when we can deliver quality in that data, and basically when we can basically put metadata and cataloging of that data and all that, so that we can actually move to the next step where we help drive business agility by putting all of that data in a single scalable framework. And what that allows us then is to actually speed up the path to a new level of business focused insights, predictive as well as reactive, as well as helping businesses take decisions and enhancing operational productivity. And all of that is basically done by putting analytics on the data that we have already cleaned up, that we have put some context to it by putting metadata, that we have cataloged it, putting intelligence on top of that. And by doing this, basically, we are now bringing in a whole host of business agility. And finally, when we have done all of this, how do we really help our businesses to come out with newer business models? How do we help them to become basically more agile from a revenue stream perspective? And how do we really enable business therefore to monetize on all of the data that resides and make sense out of it? So that's where our overall strategy resides. And whatever we do in Hitachi to help our customers from products perspective or from software and services perspective is very simple. This is how we take our customer organizations through the journey of data lifecycle and managing that data, in our customer organization by securely building agile infrastructure for storing and protecting, for enriching that data, and bringing therefore data agility, and of course activating the data for business agility, and eventually helping to monetize from that data, and therefore maximizing return on that data that is really sitting in your organization. So we call this framework as a stairway to value, and we actually put all our focus and energy to drive products, software, services, and solutions to basically take our customers through this year. So with that, I'm going to hand over back to Nimita, to take us further in this.
Thank you so much for setting the context for today's webinar. So without any further delay, let me introduce our eminent speakers for today. We have Mr. Prasanna Lohar, Head Technology and Innovation from DCB Bank, Dr. Puneet Kaur Kohli, CIO Manappuram Finance, Mr. Ramesh Lakshmi Narayanan, CIO CRISIL India, Dr. Suresh A. Shanmugam, CTO, Head Digital Innovation from Mahindra & Mahindra Financial Services, Mr. Amit Jaukar, CDO and CISO at NKGSB Bank, Mr. Chakradhar Gampala, Head of Digital Transformation at Tata AIG, Mr. Atul Kumar, General Manager IT at Canara Bank, Kiran Samudrala, Chief Data and Analytics Officer, Equifax, Dr. N. Rajendran, CEO, Indian Financial Technology and Allied Services, a subsidiary of RBI, Mr. Hemant Tiwari, Managing Director from Hitachi Vantara, India and SAARC region, Mr. Sanjay Agarwal, Technology Head and India and SAARC at Hitachi Vantara. And to moderate the roundtable, we are glad to have with us Nimilita Chatterjee, Partner Financial Services, Risk Analytics, Business Consulting at EY India. Thank you and look forward for an insightful discussion. And over to you, Nimilita.
Thank you so much. And first of all, thank you very much for all the participants and the panelists to join us today, and looking forward to a really enriching discussion. It's probably one of the hottest and one of the best topics that you could pick on demystifying data and really looking at it from a CIO's point of view, but also understanding how this data really makes sense for businesses. And that's really the theme of my very first question. And Dr. Puneet Kohli, I'd like to start with you today. The question really on the table, and I think that's going through everybody's mind, right, is that businesses are so there's lots of data available. There is the it's a limitless world in terms of how much data can be collected, and businesses are raising the bar on IT performance, especially when you look at transactional level data, right? Huge amount of data coming in. So how are IT teams changing? How are they morphing to address these challenges? Happy to hear your views, Dr. Kohli.
First of all, thank you for ET for this opportunity, and I welcome all my co-panelists and the viewers on this podium. Thanks for the opportunity. So, and thanks to Nimlita as well. So, Nimlita, am I audible enough? Am I?
Yes, you
okay,
are. Yes,
okay,
Puneet,
fine. I was not able to get back. Okay, so Nimlita, see the growing areas where, like, the BFSI industry in the past, the data as far as, there are, transactional data, there is something which is called transactional data. There is something called basically structured and unstructured data. Now, to play around the data in terms of, what are the basically the need of the hour for the IT teams to work on data, and there are, heaps and heaps of data to play around with it. There are certain areas like, artificial intelligence, or in our space, if you say in the lending spaces, data plays a very big role when you talk about in the credit risk, or you talk about, people would like to have an understanding of how do we have the credit, credit portfolios being checked for the people while we onboard people, whether the disbursements are going on the right track or not. So, how it happens is that the entire data custodian is with IT. Do IT owns the data? They are basically managing the data, but the custodians of this data is lying with the different stakeholders. Like, because they are doing a lot of their own internal, reads and checks and different permutation combination to understand, in terms of today, what are the historical patterns in terms of customer B2B or B2C segments, in terms of they want to do certain analysis on the debt, basically the debt collections, or you understand the collection process during this pandemic times, or people who have opted out for moratoriums and all. So this was a new series which started during pandemic times. It changed the mindset of the stakeholders to work collaboratively with IT, and defines some rule engines and logics to understand where, the patterns of, what are the spend patterns of the customers. Are the customers, like, are they not having any delinquency, or people who are, because during this time there was no new loans being disbursed, but do they have the capacity or the capability, if they have opted for a moratorium due to any XYZ reasons, will they be able to give once the, the embargo has been raised post August 21st or August 31st. So that is some area where, the rule engines defined and artificial intelligence was giving some feedback. Then secondly, analytics based on the prescriptive and predictive analysis, is the other segment which talks about employees. When you talk about employees also, there are heaps and heaps of data where employee engagement, employee leavings, or probably, the past performance of the, the productivity of the employees, in terms of, like, whether we are being able to do the rightful appraisals, what are the star performers during this time, who really played and came out to be very good. These are certain areas which change the entire ecosystem, and the, the basically the analysis being done on the data that is prevailing in bits and pieces. The third area which I will suggest is in terms of there should not be any siloed approach. In our scenario where we have multi-regulatory environment, data plays around the process. So we need to know basically the data that we own, where exactly do we really have the right data to close and saying, and are we doing the right practices of doing the cleansing in time or not. So this is something as the best practices that each organization has to take a call, and then do their, remedial measures in terms of how to do certain analysis in reaching out to the masses.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kohli. I think a very important point raised in terms of the data not just being transactional data, but being HR data, being so many other parts of data that we probably, earlier never used, but now businesses are using to make the business work a lot better. Mr. Jaukar, I'd like to have your views, please, on the similar lines, and how are you managing this raised expectations or varied expectations of business stakeholders?
Nimilita, Mr. Jaukar has just had a bandwidth issue. He'll just join in.
Okay, okay. Mr. Shanmugam, would you like to take that question, if that's okay with you? Sorry for popping that on you, but if you could take that question, that will be great.
No issues. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see again all the peers, and thanks for the opportunity to be with you all. And again, it's a great topic where after COVID, at least we can see every organization is loaded with enough data, and everybody will talk more about data. Data is everywhere, and financial service companies needs to capture it all. For us, initially it is for more of a regulation and compulsion. Now it's more to do with customer interaction, financial transactions, product and services, especially purchase histories, and coming out with the customer journeys, trying to earn to pay, and try to get engaged with the marketing campaigns, service inquiries, market feeds, social media streams, and IoT, especially streams on software logs and text messages. In our case, we do a lot more in emails, SMS, and try to bring as much even WhatsApp, which are the new technology sources. When it comes to user demand for this data, after COVID, I'm sure like in today's financial service, especially from the enterprise, it's very, very important to recognize that every employee is really as an analytics, and they are going to generate and trying to communicate and get engaged with the customers. The kind of decision support allowing users to base decisions and empirical evidence rather than gut feelings supports a lot more today with the kind of data which we are trying to do it. Especially it comes to trust in terms of security and accuracy of information with authentic, which creates proactively to anticipate and influence business, especially the outcomes by paying attention to new and increasing information, which forward into looking multiple signals, which generates out of this current data. Self-service, especially when we operate more in rural India, we have enough self-service access to the data, and easily it is usable as analytical tools, try to generate, get engaged with end customers, even with the other entities like dealers, brokers, agents, and sub-brokers. It requires more of speed and intelligent information equivalent to what users will experience from the customer personally, and how technology enables to shrink reach and speed. Means it has to be available in the last mile, and trying to get it as much as speed, and trying to impact of rising complexity in terms of competition. So when it comes to more of capturing channels, which comes part of mobile apps and analytical solutions, core applications, finance and risk applications, trying to use as much as enterprise data warehouse, social media interactions, put everything on cloud object storage, which tries to create as much as into data lakes, which creates a soil data environments to avoid silos, and trying to get reinforced with the organization to get the best grouping in terms of the information which is available part of the solution to really interact with one another, and trying to empower business. So data is growing more high. Surely down the line, we might have enough solutions going to more work on that touch and feel, even trying to use as much digital, which is going to replay more on terms of data, which is going to be part of that solution. And data is going to have as much as, which is time consuming reconciliation efforts to create as much authentic information, that to timely available for both corporate and the end users across the country.
Thank you so much. That was really enlightening. I think what we hear, the words like digital, the words that the fact that data has been democratized, the fact that rural India, it's no longer that you don't get data in rural India, especially for organizations like yours that function across and have a very deep penetration in rural India. It's really refreshing to hear that initiatives like this are underway, and that data is being used irrespective of the part of India that it is from. Thank you very much for your insights. Hemant, would you like to give your views on this question as well, please, from the Hitachi standpoint? Hemant, you're on mute.
Yeah, my apologies. Can you hear me now?
Yes, all good.
Okay. Yeah, so I totally concur with the views of the earlier participants, Nimita, and very enlightening as well. Now, from our perspective, really, when you said it right, data is getting democratized by the day. Actually, it's already democratized. Actually, it is an IT challenge as to how do you make sure that the data, while it being democratic, actually is made available to people, who are supposed to have that access to that data in a very secure and in a very, it always available basis, and then you don't allow that data to be, accessed by people who are not allowed to be accessed that data. Now, the question also basically talks about how does, basically business has raising bar on IT. That is true. As part of overall environment, businesses are expecting a hell lot from the IT organizations within their organization. And it has been very challenging for most of us, most of our, customers, as we discuss with them from time to time. And also for us to actually step up. And I can tell you that while we have a point of view as to how do we take our customers through the data journey within their organization, which I kind of covered earlier by way of a framework, it's equally important that businesses, do get the level of transactional performance that the businesses are looking for. The businesses do get the level of agility that they are, and flexibility that they are looking for. And I think the point covered well on, bringing in public cloud or bringing in public cloud type environments on the on-prem becomes a very critical perspective. How do you accelerate, the business transaction response times? How do you make sure that in an all online world, the transactions are working at super fast speed, and at the same time, because everything is online, because everything is connected, business is ever working, there's absolutely no scope for anything going out of, downtime, etc. The business continuity and the guaranteeing for that business continuity becomes extremely critical. I think those are the areas that we really, work with our customers. We have a host of solutions, but if I look at from a data center agility perspective, which I covered earlier as well, as to how do we, kind of accelerate business transaction responses, and how do we make sure that business continuity is always available and data is available to right people at the right time, securely, and whichever way that you want. At the same time, it is protected in the organization for by way of any disaster that strikes the organization. Some of the technology trends that we are basically now seeing that have crept in, especially from a data store perspective and data management and protection perspective, is like, completely flash enabled data center have now, become a way of life, especially for very critical database applications. NVMe technology has come into play in a significant way. And again, NVMe, many people, deploy and implement. But I think true NVMe implementation is something that the customers and the CIOs should be looking for if they want to really meet the expectations of their businesses when it comes to business expectations from the CIO organization. Now, there are technologies available across the board. From Hitachi perspective, of course, we have some of the fastest technologies that are available at this point in time from a data storage perspective. Things like 21 million IOPS is something that was ever unheard of. We make it available, 70 microsecond latency, and so on and so forth. At the same time, we make business continuity a guarantee for our customers. So highly resilient design considerations and architectures in our products. 8-9 availability from an uptime perspective. 100% data availability guarantee. I think it's a very unique Hitachi, offering to our customers. And of course, active global active devices, zero RPO, zero RTO. And active sites for business continuity. I think these are the various types of solutions that we offer from a data management framework perspective. Of course, there are solutions that we offer for digitizing business processes and hosting them where the application really wants them, maybe on-prem, maybe in public cloud, or build a multi-cloud environment from our customers. So I think that's where we are coming from. We play and we work with our partners and ecosystem, solution providers as well, Nimita, to offer, this framework and this architecture. That's what I would say from Hitachi perspective.
Thank you so much. And I think again the infrastructure part of it really is also very important, and all of those metrics you gave are
Yes,
really impressive.
that's at the core, right? You need an agile enterprise. You need an agile IT infrastructure in the first place.
Yes.
Agile data center. Yeah,
Yes, absolutely. So thank you so much on that. Coming to my next question, really is, as we went around hearing even the views on this question, everybody talked about data growing. Data is almost like a live organism. Things are, it's getting added, it's moving, it's changing, it's morphing all the time. And it's interacting with the external world. So you're continuously seeing back and forth with the external world. In this new world, how are organizations optimizing their daily operations, maintaining data integrity, managing data compliance, privacy? There are so many other things, especially in BFSI. There are so many things that come along that you need to worry about, and not just the data itself or the infrastructure in itself, right? So, Mr. Lakshminarayanan, I'd love to hear your views on that, especially, given where you are in the amount of data that you do handle. It'll be great to hear your views on this particular question.
Yeah, and thanks, Amrita. Am I audible?
Yep. Yes, you are. Yes, very clearly.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, and it's a great context that we need to kind of debate and discuss. Coming back to your specific question, today while data is growing and it's growing, as someone put it, the last 2 years data growth has been that much that historically we've not seen that much of data growth, right? So 2-year growth has been equivalent to the lifetime growth. So that's how the explosion has come. But with it, I think the compliance, privacy, governance challenges do come. And it's a very hot topic, I'm sure everybody in the panel here would agree, whether it's BFSI, non-BFSI, that's become irrelevant. Today, privacy and compliance are very fundamental to the data architecture, right? And if you see world over, it's not just from a construct perspective, even from a regulation perspective. So if you look at at what's happening in US, what's happening with GDPR, what's happening with India privacy, I think clearly it's not just enough to just think only from an innovation explosion continuity perspective. I think privacy and compliance are now bang in the center of this discussion. And for someone like us, like CRISIL as an organization, because we do deal with a lot of private data, we do deal with a lot of ratings data, which is something that's very critical for us to protect. So that really becomes more topical. I think 2 or 3 things here from how do we go about it, right? One, fundamentally, I think when you do the absolute data architecture at the base level, the cataloging has to be very strong. And I'm not talking about encryption. I'm not talking about partition. Those are like par for the course. I'm talking about actually labeling right at the absolute basic. Clearly labeling from a private, public, who can consume it, who cannot consume it. The other part is today, the data lineage is also very critical. Just the minute you talk about a data compliance, the entire lineage comes in. Where did the data get generated? For example, today, just crawling public sites and pulling data is not a great sign, because that may not be allowed. That data may not be allowed to consume. A lot of fintechs in India today do that. All the time you will see data service providers coming and selling the data. We don't even know whether they're authorized to crawl the data, right? So some of those elements start coming in. So really the first thing is to identify the data lineage, label the data, and then bring it into the architecture of how you are going to kind of construct the security around, right? So clearly that is a start point. And then on top of it, you start building the technology frameworks. Clearly, aspects around today with a lot of data going on cloud, very, very clear aspects on private keys, bring your own key thought processes. Then the whole thought process around encryption. All of this is pretty much at the center of the discussion, but there are technology solutions that are available to do this kind of protection. So to my mind, I think the key is to get the business ownership on the data right, and then slowly build the technology solution around. It's not the other way around. I think if you try and get to technology solutions first, and then try and protect the data, you will have issues. I mean, like I said, whether it's encryption, whether it's partition, whether it's multi-tenancy, all of these are hot topics. But I think fundamentally we have to go back and first look at the data from absolutely business perspective, lineage, labeling, privacy norms, regulatory construct, and all of those standards have to be applied at absolutely base unit data level and see whether it's kind of coming up to the terms in that sense, and then you build the architecture. So I do think it's very important to first look at that aspect and then start building the technology solution, and that's what we've been constantly doing. So, for example, our whole focus has been to really first look at the data properties, from where it's coming, whether it's been sourced rightly, who's accessing it, in which region it's being accessed, whether it's a private, it's a public data, and then you really build a taxonomy, mapping, and all of the other layers on top of it. Right? So I think that's how we would look at it. So it's very, very important that the data architecture takes into account the business privacy and business compliance and business security requirements, and then build on top. So I hope that kind of brings the context of what you asked from a question perspective.
Yes, super answer. It almost makes you feel like the blood diamond story, that you can wear the diamond, but you need to ensure where the diamond comes from. That's really what it's all about, right? So, Mr. Atul Kumar, I would love to hear your views on that as well, on this particular, how do you handle all this data in terms of governance and all of that? Mr. Atul Kumar? Okay, I don't think, I don't know what the issue is. I don't see him on the screen either, so I don't know what. So we'll get back to him. Mr. Prasanna Lohar, it would be great to hear your views on how you guys look at this. What do you see in this area of data compliance, managing all of this ever-changing data?
So can you repeat your question, because I didn't hear your question clearly, and be precise, like what is that you are looking forward to understand from me? Yeah.
So the question, sir, is that there is the data is growing, data is changing, data is morphing. How do you manage in terms of data integrity, data compliance, data privacy, all of these regulations that go around the data? How are those managed, and what are your views on that?
So see, as such, we don't have a separate policy for data, okay, as of now. So when data protection law, data protection act will come in our life, and there will be a lot of guidelines will be mentioned how it has to be handled. Say example, let's say look at a GDPR. GDPR says that you have to have some data officer out there in your organization who is responsible for all the data which is available in the organization. So what we look at as per compliance and regulation, we have aligned with a great process which says how do we protect the customer's data. We follow that process generically. So data which is available with us, customer is owning that data. We as a bank, we follow all the regulatory guidelines or compliance guidelines. Whenever we go for any of the release of any of the applications, all the IT security, vulnerability, penetration test has been conducted. Or even after that, on a regular basis, this data monitoring, how the data being utilized in every other aspects, it's really taken care. So that's the current view, okay. But in future, when data will move, when your applications will change, that's a challenge which I want to understand Hitachi also, how they will look at this ever-changing world, right? Say example, today I have a customer who is coming for my mobile app or internet banking app. He is accessing something, he is also having that app, and a lot of data is available, his data is available everywhere. There are some policies, say example, today Paytm app is down just because of they have not taken care of some of the Google policies, right? And now all of a sudden, I do not know when that app will come up, right? So these kind of external factors, so we have to look at it where my consumer is already utilizing those services. My API is given there. Say example, as a bank, I have given my payment API or onboarding API to my partners, how they are really governing. So there also we have a right set of regulations. So how do we onboard startups and fintechs? So now the question here, like when tomorrow's application will go on crowdsourcing on an aggregation model with open API. What does it mean? It means your insurance app, is talks with several other stakeholders. It will talk to your bank, it will talk to your insurance company, or it will talk to the car manufacturing company, and all these companies will be on the same chain and same aggregator. How do we really protect that data? How do we really protect that complete chain, right? Chain of data, because data will be available everywhere. So I think this is something which we have to look at as a futuristic approach. And there you go, like with the technology like ledger technologies or blockchain technologies, which will take care of the security aspects across everywhere. So what I want to say that today we know how are we protecting data with aligned with our regular processes and regulations. But tomorrow future it will be very difficult approach, right? Wherein we'll look at how Hitachi's or the solution service provider will say your data is intact on this kind of architecture also, right? Today we have a monolithic architecture, tomorrow we'll have a microservices based architecture, day after we'll have a open architecture, right? We need to be ready for that, and we will not go there unless regulators say let's go there. So there will be a game like catching the open architecture or business. Then people will do some kind of innovations now, or some kind of compromising, and people will go live with that, right? Because see, look at other challenger banks or fintechs or some of those companies who are not regulated. They are giving same service to the other customers through our APIs, and they are earning those customers, right? Google, talk about Google. Google is already there with all my data, all my customers. Ask Apple, they are giving Apple Pay. Google is giving Google Pay, and all this data is available with them. Not only that data, they have this unstructured, structured, both kind of data for the same customer, and they can create 360-degree view of that customer and understand this customer needs something tomorrow or day after something tomorrow, and they can offer same kind of services which bank was offering yesterday. So I think it's a very beautiful journey, we'll say, and we have to be ready what is there coming in our way. And post COVID, you will see a lot of such innovations here onwards. Yesterday or day before yesterday, we have seen payment, contactless payment on Titan app, right, by SBI. How this whole data is moving from that wearable device, right, back to the data center of that particular bank. How it's gonna, certainly they must have taken care of all the security angles, but wearable is a new thing, right? Wearable is a new thing, and wearable will not be a new thing after 2-3 years. It will be there just like a mobile phone that we have. IoT devices will not be new thing. Today we are talking about smart refrigerators. The smart refrigerator become normal refrigerator after 2-3 years. So what does it mean? Your payment experience, your banks, we need to align how data security will happen end to end. So that's one of the thing I open up with the Hitachi. And I would say, just to answer your earlier question, we follow right processes at various stages, starting from requirement gathering till delivery, and after delivery monitoring of the data, how data being utilized at endpoints, at a server level, and various other level. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I think, again, the responsibility of the data and the amount of work going into the responsibility of, how the data is stored, all of that is really, really becoming important. And that's, so Hemant, your views, I guess, that's important for Hitachi's views in this regard as well.
Thanks, Nimita, and that was very comprehensive, and insightful again from Mr. Prasanna. A lot of challenges and posed basically to be answered. I will try and try and answer it to the best of my ability, and then probably invite Sanjay if he wants to add anything. So as again, all of this is revolving around how do we make sure data is secure, is made available to the right set of people, as I had talked about and Mr. Prasanna covered in great length. Honestly, for data operations to succeed in our overall IT organization, we need to avoid complexity in terms of data management infrastructure. I think that's a very essential thing that we need to consider. And that only a handful of experts can understand and improve this is not the right thing to do. I think what we should look at is how do we create policy-based configuration and automation and so on and so forth. I think that's where one has to come from. Honestly speaking, if we have to achieve operational experience from a data perspective, we will probably have to make sure that we expand, metadata across, the organization. Automation and policy-driven controls and configuration is something which is important. Now, as I said earlier also, that we have a huge amount of that data in our organization, something not understood by any of us, more than 90%. And that data remains unused. Now, how do we bring that to light? And of course, it requires, to be enriched, in the right way. It needs to be, structured. So it's basically structured data, machine actionable metadata is something that we need. Now, we have all types of data sources, right? You've got structured, unstructured, file, object, and all that stuff. How do you make sure that you bring it all together and blend it in a way that you can use machines to actually provide actionable insights on that? And actionable metadata then becomes a very, very critical and important task out here. How do we support better search, self-service, data assembly, and blending? I think that becomes important. Configuration, data management, infrastructure, and various forms of automation. So I think bringing data into the light, makes it easier to locate and rapidly advance. So search and solve business problems. I think over a period in time, we have got to achieve all of this, and can only be done, in a form, in a way that we add better data governance processes, automate them and expand them, and policy-based data automation and configuration. I would say that, and expanding automation is a very critical, activity. Sequence of complex tasks, that we conduct in our organization, collated and connected in large automated pipeline. I think that is exactly what we need to do. And for doing that, we have to enable our people to conduct complex data tasks and insights, and get insights to the, to our businesses at the press of a button. Now, that can only be done. It takes a long time, but it can only be done if we do a lot of automation, within our data center for a whole host of processes which govern data, and activate self-serving, by our business users as well. And expanding, policy-driven control and configuration becomes equally critical as well. I think Mr. Prasanna raised about API controlled services, and I think that is critical as well. A full set of API controlled services and automation of complex tasks is a very key requirement. Now, we have a host of solutions that help our customers to do all of these things. It really requires data platforms to have some kind of capabilities which are underlying as well. And what we provide in a very limited way, I will say, is that scalable and backup less data platform. As scalability of many petabytes of data is no more uncommon these days, it is simply not practical to back up such a data on a daily basis. Inbuilt capability to ensure data integrity and to have auto check and correction is a very critical piece of work that we need to do. And I think Hitachi technologies and processes help do that. Easy searching, and I talked about metadata being applied to all sorts of data to basically make it more machine searchable and readable. And I think easy searching and pattern discovery based metadata therefore becomes very critical in our organization. Compliance, so you talked about compliance, Mr. Prasanna. Write once, read many, WORM, or legal hold and long-term retention, etc., are something that are extremely common. So when data is retired eventually, and it will happen at some stage, systems must be there to ensure full data deletions from all repositories in the organization is taken place, again in a very automated manner. It is simply not possible to do it manually. So I would say some of these things is where Hitachi comes into play. Sanjay, you want to add anything to it?
Thanks, Hemant. Mr. Prasanna, it was a really interesting data journey and data leverage that you talked about. Most of the points have been discussed by Hemant, but few things that you raised at the beginning. The data is being generated today, and data will get generated tomorrow and day after. And in each of these stages, you would have different applications, different technologies, I think data will be still valuable at the end of a decade as well sometimes. How do we ensure that the data is still seen and visible at the end of that cycle? So there are approaches where people are looking for data platforms that are technology agnostic. That means if I write data today and applications are changing over a period of time, I should still be able to leverage the data a little later. So that's one part that comes into the picture. Some of the interfaces that are becoming open right now, things like S3 interface that people are adopting for data purpose, and that is making it open and decoupling it from a proprietary application standpoint. That becomes extremely important. Protection, Hemant talked about, platforms that can protect the data, not only from a data integrity perspective, but from a data availability perspective. And with the size of the data that you see in petabytes, it's not practical to take the backup. Can my platform be backup free? Data lineage, more than that, data versioning, all of those capabilities should also be there in the platform. And the data lakes are evolving, where it's technology agnostic, it's interface agnostic. Data can come in from any application, any interface, any source. We should be able to have structured data, unstructured data, semi-structured data. We should be able to blend it. We should be able to get 360-degree view. And I'll talk about that as we move forward. So some of these are real challenges, and there are ways to build it up in terms of passing out some of the capabilities to the platform, and some of the capabilities through automation, and of course ensure that the value gets derived at the end of the day. Over to you, Nimit.
Okay.
Thank you. That was really, really helpful, and thank you very much. So I know we are, running a little behind the clock, but anyway, I have one more question, which is very, very important, which is really, after collecting all this data, there is the application of the data, which is, of course, most naturally analytics, right? And of course, we talk about democratization and everybody getting access to data. But what are people doing with this data? How are the insights derived from this data? And that's really important for us to discuss today. And today's discussion would really be incomplete without that. So we'd like to know that, the evolution of the usage of the data or the analytics, especially when you have real-time data feeds and, machine learning and things having to push back in real time, etc. It's the need of the business, especially from the analytics side, is becoming super heavy and super, I would say, quote unquote, complicated. So Mr. Rajendran, we'd love to hear your views on how, what you feel about the way data is being used, and how, the tech, the IT part of the organization is dealing with the applications of this data and the complexities coming in there. Mr. Rajendran, you're on mute, sir.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, and good afternoon once again. And I think after a long time, I think we're able to see each other on the virtual things, and it's a good opportunity to share the each and other's views. And definitely, I think starting about the growing data, first we see challenges on the pre-COVID and post-COVID, and now it is COVID happening also, and the demand which is makes the data it is spread in borderless. Earlier you used to have the centralized one, now it becomes a distributed one, and the one big challenge, how you able to get these data together, whether you are able to validate and you clean up the data and get it, and together how you'll able to correlate it, and it is a very, very typical task. I think people have started doing the things, and in the analytical front, if you started doing, and the works, some of the organizations started very early stages also, and they deployed the bots or the lot of other automated ways to even recognize and the response to the lot of queries in automated way, and that some of the people it helped. But when you get into the requirements of the compliance versus the usage, and it's very typical task. If you give it to any tool which you wanted to convert it or you wanted to correlate it, and whether you are owner of the data, first you need to be defined also, whether it could be a en route, or it could be the a transit, or it could be the coming for the validation or the cross check. Whether if you're going to use the data, then you need to first declassify the data, and that itself becomes the very complexity, and it's a growing data, and the need for the using the data, it becomes very sensitive. And the in the growing frauds also becomes the biggest need of the looking into the every data. If we see the things, whether if we are starting from the morning onwards, people are now moved from the physical channels to lot of things are digital channels. You do not know to whom you are even interacting and what you are sharing, and these kind of things is happening. So your analytical streams should able to take a quick decisions, and how you'll able to take it, and it requires the a strong platforms and the responses, and it should be a very quick decision taking to be done, so that you will able to serve the request or the requirement to the any customer in times. And apart from the taking care of all other, before even doing such kind of activities, either you are allowed to use the data, also you need to check it before you are getting to the taking any decision. For that, you need to check whether the customer given the consent to take such kind of activities. So the analytic goes in different ways to and get the decision making at the end. So definitely at the end, the customer have to get a good experience. So towards that, I think we should able to work it. I think, to keeping view of the time, I stop this comment with this note.
Thank you, Sonu. That's an important. Again, the usage is really what everybody is should be focused on and is focused on right now. So, Mr. Kampala, coming to you, what do you feel on the on the analytics, and I'm taking analytics in specific because probably the requirements are the most complex coming in from the usage of data from the analytics side. So, would love to hear your views as well.
Yeah, I think, so the way we are thinking about it is typically data as well as the insights we want from the data. We are working in a two-speed mode. So like, I think, we talked about data, right? It's challenging. I think there's a lot that's changing. There's a lot that we need to put in place to make, to get the value out of data. So what we typically do on the analytics side is we work in two-speed mode. So there is usually, every organization has data today that comes in Excel sheets, comes from different systems, whatever way, right? So we typically solve analytics problems using that data, because that's the fastest way and that's the most familiar way to business. And there's also confidence in that data, because that data is used today for operating the business. So it goes back to how, it's analytics is not a technology thing. Analytics is a business competitive advantage. And I think for that, business needs to be in the game, in having the skin. And the only way they will make that switch is if they're familiar with what we're working on. So I think typically every time we pick up an analytics problem, we work with the data. It's in all kinds of form. Sometimes it's plain, like somebody's laptop or desktop has the data. So we work with the data. So it goes back to Dr. Rajendran's comment. A lot of time spent in cleaning, massaging, transforming, and standardizing the data. So a lot of wrangling of the data. So we spend a good chunk of 60 to 70% of our time in data wrangling, and but that's where we are in from a maturity standpoint. So once that is there, I think the real applying the the science becomes easy. Applying the AI ML techniques on top of it becomes easy. But what we do at the same time, that is two-speed IT part of it, is that we start building a data pipeline. Typically, goes back to, so what we want is a real-time analytics, right? So we want to embed analytics into a business process. So we take a parallel activity of studying the business process, of identifying which insights will drive that business process. For example, from insurance standpoint, we have a big book of private car business, and our claims processing is a very important aspect. That's where the rubber meets the road. Customers take insurance policies so they can come through. We can come through for them when they have the claim, right? So what we want to do in that is evaluate that risk of, we want to keep a green lane for the right customers, but we want to prevent fraud because there is a lot of fraud that happens in various aspects. So analytics, the way we are using analytics to solve that problem statement today is, for example, we started with a weekly red flagging of fraudulent claims based on a model that was sitting on top of MIS reports that were in Excel. Then slowly we moved that to a daily. And parallelly, we kicked off a project where in real time with the system interaction based on an AWS SageMaker deployed model, we are able to deliver real-time integrations. But I think, that second leg of it, we started at the same time as we started the first leg. So to me, I think, we have to have a short and long-term view. Goes back, right? I mean, business wants results. And the quickest way to get those results is, in our mind, I think, where we are and in our maturity, is a two-speed way. So we work on models that are offline, but we start the work on the online and embedded analytics from day one. They end at different points, but they come together. And I think, we are able to deliver value quickly to our business.
Wow, that's really nice to hear, and that's like almost like a super way to work this around. Kiran, I know you've been waiting patiently. My apologies, we've had to go around the room. I know you deal with lots of data, and I think probably analytics is front and center for you guys as well. So your views on this would be really appreciated.
Well, this is the crux of I'm sorry, thanks for having me, and I have a hot step now, but well. So this is the crux of what we do. I think customer is the center of the whole thing that we are trying to achieve in our business, actually. Right. So what we do is we kind of get the data. Right now we are embarking our journey on cloud. Pretty much we are there. In a couple of months, we should be up and running. So we have a platform where we seamlessly kind of service our customers with advanced analytics. We have various it's like we are personalizing our models for the customers, where they can come. For example, a customer requires risk analytics model, so they just can get into our environment and just pick the variables there and can run their analytics. So we are almost getting there. So at the end of the day, how you ingest data, those pipelines into the data, into the cloud platform, right? And what are the security aspects of the data? Those are the important things which you should look at it when you're building an analytics platform. Those are pretty much taken care of. This is again a typical CDO strategy. One is inward, one is outward. Inward comes to how you ensure data threat, data security, privacy, integrity, quality, regulatory compliance, and governance into picture, and then how you optimize data extraction, standardization, and storage, and how you give access to that data, and how you build your data management architecture, so to speak. Which means how you are controlling the data. The way you control the data will give the flexibility, in the reporting area or analytics area, how you can give flexibility in that area. So we call that as, I call that as inward. And when it is outward, it is more to do with the competitive position and profitability, right? How you can improve the competitive position, right? How you optimize the data and analytics, modeling, visualization, transformation and enrichment of the data, right? And how flexible you are, in giving those models. So, and it can have a multiple, versions of truth, right? When you have holding on to the data, which is inward, where you're holding on to the data, where all the optimization, data extraction, that is more a control, which is a single source of truth. But when it is getting into the analytics area, which is outward, that should be, multiple versions of the truth. So that is how, typically the world is evolving. A customer wants to look at, what version, of truth, I get to see, using my data versus, your data versus alternate data, right? When you overlay all of these and, try to produce analytic solution, the version, which he likes to view is what you have to kind of support. So that is where, the whole journey is all about. As I said, I have a hard stop now, but at the end of the day, I just want to come back to, you have to set a right balance between data monetization, through analytics, and risk reduction through ensure that your platforms, your data privacy, security, data quality are intact. So once you have all your risk reduction, risk areas addressed, then your monetization seamlessly becomes easy through your analytics or, machine learning or whatever, so on, right? So that is how you have to build your strategy. That is how you have to embark on a journey, whether it is a cloud or, next level of, legacy platforms. That is, and having said that, I have to stop here. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. And I know, Sanjay, over to you for some, your views on this and some closing remarks, post which we can, I guess it's the time where everybody has hard stops. So we'll, quickly wrap it up after that.
Absolutely. This was very interesting discussion and very comprehensive one. Let me touch upon some of the things that came up. In fact, we also felt that way that, the CIO strategy should be around that. At the beginning, enterprises should have a data catalog to know what data they have, as rightly pointed out by Mr. Rajendran, Dr. Rajendran, sorry. And in that data catalog, it gives you the information about the data, what data we have, where it is, what kind of data it is, and all of that. Then we should be able to have the capability to perform search, e-discovery, and things like that. Now, when we talk about data, we are talking about unstructured data as well, and that's huge in size, and that size is getting into petabytes. Then the traditional way of data preparation, data cleansing, data processing before data becomes available for analysis becomes a challenge, because the window could be few hours, whereas what you need is running into days. So there is a change in strategy in terms of data analytics. Many organizations are building data lakes, onboarding the data, and delaying the data processing on a need basis. And that is known as concept like streamlined data refinery. Data sets are being picked up by analysts the moment data is landed, and it brings in real-time capability. And then on the fly, that small piece of the data gets enriched, gets transformed, that gets cleansed, and that brings the real-time decision-making capability for the organization. When it comes to analytics, traditional ways of doing analytics around structured data has been there, but now with structured data also becoming equally important, people have started analyzing that data as well. Now, the real value is actually coming when you start blending the structured data and unstructured data, and then analyze that. And that's where redefined customers' views are coming. Customer 360-degree view that we are talking about, wherein we are not only talking about the business transactions being viewed completely across the products and channels, but also the interactions that customers are having, for example, with banks, the sentiments that they have, and things like that. On top of that, when you apply AI and ML, it brings more productivity, it brings more value, more insights for decision making. And the data as Kiran also mentioned, is now being considered for cloud as well. When it comes to data on cloud, there are challenges because cloud provider would take control. Enterprises would feel that, without any kind of control in terms of metadata, enrichment of the data, sorry, not enrichment, encryption of the data, we would not take the advantage of flexibility of moving the data around clouds and things like that. Today, there are technologies that are available known as Cloud Broker that allows enterprises to have full control of the data, which is metadata, encryption, and things like that, retain that on-prem, and able to move around across the clouds without any compromise. Those are the technologies are adding a lot of value. So let me quickly summarize that in the interest of time. Most of the CIOs I have interacted with said one thing, and that came out clearly in this conversation as well today, that they want to derive more value from the data. When they embark on a journey to derive more value from the data, there are predominantly two initiatives. Initiative number one is, can I optimize my data platform so that data platform is capable to manage my data to keep the lights on? Then can I shift my focus from data operations, data preparations to data analysis and data science? That's where initiatives like data ops, similar to DevOps that has been there in application development space, is coming in the data analytics space, and that is accelerating the digital transformation journey when it comes to data monetization. We have a lot of technologies and solutions that I talked about. I know it's a limited time today. We would be glad to come back and do detailed discussions with each one of you. Reach out to us. We would be keen to do a workshop if required, how we are able to provide a solution from the point of data capturing till the point of data monetization. And we would be glad to do that. Thank you once again for taking time out from your busy schedule. Over to you, Nimilita.
Thank you very much, Sanjay. Thank you, the Hitachi team, and thank you very much, the participants. It's at EY we have a ringside view of a lot of the initiatives that are being done, and we are happy to be part of a lot of these transformational journeys that are happening in the BFSI sector. We look forward to having many more conversations with you, and again, thank you very much to the ET team as well as the Hitachi team for putting this together. Look forward to talking to all of you again soon, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nimilita, for your valuable time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
ET
thank
team,
you so much. I would request, we have posted a feedback form link in the chat window. I request all of you to please click and respond to that. And I would request maybe if anyone would want to just give a little sum up, maybe Nimilita or somebody from Hitachi would want to give a small closing remarks after the discussion that we had.
I will let it go to Nimilita.
So all the difficult job is left to me.
But I want to thank all the participants from Hitachi's side, as Sanjay did, and Nimilita, to you and to ET as well. Thank you.
Yes. So again, thank you very much. I think as Sanjay said, very much in line with a lot of the conversations we've had and heard in terms of the amount of data, the extent of data, structured, unstructured, the fact that businesses are really stepping up the accelerator, and tech teams do need to keep in touch with what's happening really keep in step. And technology is no longer really a backroom function. It's really, every technology is everywhere, and technology is everything in these days. Even regular functional people are becoming techno-functional, which is really the best part about the way the world is evolving. It is heartening to hear that a lot of initiatives are underway, not just by the firms themselves, but also people like Hitachi, who are really keeping in step with, be it infrastructure, be it the way, being in line with what is happening in businesses, so that at no point in time are you devoid of reality. And I think these kind of interactions, public interactions, are very helpful for everyone to understand where the OEMs are versus where the applications and the uses of this really is, and that's helpful for everyone. So thank you very much again, and it was great meeting all of you and participating in this. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank you all
evening.
for joining
Have a
the
good weekend.
unwired session.
Good weekend to everybody. Bye-bye.
Same to you all.
Bye-bye.